So you might be thinking, isn't DragonCon like 8 months away? And yes, you would be right. So let me ramble and catch you up on why I'm starting this now. If you're not familiar with DragonCon, it's a huge pop culture convention that happens in Atlanta every year. On their website, they describe DragonCon as the largest multimedia pop culture convention focusing on science fiction and fantasy, gaming, comics, literature, art, music, and film in the universe. It's held on Labor Day weekend each year, which at the time that I'm making this video is just over 8 months away. This is my first time that I will be attending DragonCon, and I'm very excited. I stalked it online as it was happening this past year, started to take notes about what to expect and things like that. I already have our tickets, I have our hotel room, so we're well on our way. Kind of for context, the only con kind of like this that I can figure that I go to quite regularly is Convergence. Convergence is a con that happens in Minneapolis, Minnesota over the 4th of July weekend. And it just seems like Dragon Con is a giant convergence on steroids. Side note, if you haven't gone to many conventions and you're looking for another fun one to go to, I highly recommend checking out Convergence. I'll leave a link to their website down below. It's always a great time. So, if you are a cosplayer or a costumer or familiar with that lifestyle, you might be familiar with Con Crunch. So, it's that time before a con when your life becomes a tornado of crafting as you ramp up to attend said con. I feel like it's an integral part to the preparation process, or at least it is for me. This year, I'm not going to be able to have that traditional con crunch because I am moving in July. So I'm expecting my life to basically be chaos in the moving sense, with boxes and everything kind of hard to get to. For what I'm about expecting to be maybe a month until we're kind of feeling a little bit more settled, mid August. And on top of that, I already live in a really small apartment right now with my husband. So there's not really any room to tornado, even if I did have the ability to have that, traditional con crunch. It's just there's not much room for it. It would make our apartment, extremely hectic. And I need to remain sane because I also work fully remotely. So I am in our little apartment all day long, every day. At the same time in the summer, July, August, that is my day job's most busiest time of year. So I'm going to just be swamped with actual work during the days, and it can just get really hectic around that time. So, with all that being said, I've kind of put my personal deadline for DragonCon at the end of June. That's still 6 months away. But because of my small apartment size and the fact that I can't kind of tornado, I do need to be taking these projects on bit by bit so that they're a little bit more manageable in the moment. So that's why we're getting started early. So let me dive into kind of what projects I have in mind for DragonCon this year. And just for reference, DragonCon is 5 days long. And when I go to Convergence, I typically don't like to wear the same costume more than twice. That said, I could start the day in one look and then change midway through the day when I need a break of that costume. It just gives me a little bit more flexibility in what I have to wear. So because of that, I'm planning on 5 costumes for DragonCon around. I'm also attending DragonCon with my husband Josh. I'm also attending with my mom and my mom's best friend. And we are a fan of group costumes. So that's always a factor we take into consideration with the cosplays that we're planning. What would this look like as a group? What would it look like separate? That kind of a thing. Because I'm not expecting to stay together the whole time, throughout the day, but the times that we are together, we want to be more of a group cohesive look. The first cosplay that, at least on my end, is the most complete is kind of Harry Potter villains. When my mom and I attend conventions together, we usually attend as Rita Skeeter and Dolores Umbridge. It's usually a great hit. It's usually the cosplay I have the most fun in. I just recently upgraded my Rita Skeeter cosplay to be her lime green type suit. And I'm really really happy with how that turned out. That was my kind of 4-day con crunch project that I had last year. So I'm very happy with it, but it does need some alterations. So for one, the feathers that are around the cuffs and the collar, they keep disappearing. I don't know where they're going. I don't know if they're falling into the jacket. I don't know if they're falling out of the jacket, but they need to be replaced. So I need to figure out a new solution for the collar and the cuffs, kind of that feathery fur situation that she has going on. Second, I need to add a slit to the back of the skirt because right now I can't walk upstairs in it. My walking in general is just a little bit limited, so I want to be able to, comfortably be able to move around in that costume. I think a slit in the back is needed. And then third, this is kind of the biggest part of this project for me this year, is I am dying to make a floating quick quotes quill and notebook. So I'm thinking some sort of kind of armature wire harness thing that I can wear underneath the jacket that makes it look like, that notepad and the quick quotes quill is floating behind me. I just think that would be so cool and really kind of go over the top just a little bit with this costume, and I think it would be really fun. And then finally, what I was talking about here completely changed in the time from filming this to when I'm editing this. So the new plan is sewing a Gilderly Lockhart cosplay for Josh. So that will be his look. So I'll be working that into my plan here. We don't have anything for this costume, so this would be a complete make. This way, when we're out as a 4-person group, we are Lockhart, Umbridge, Rita Skeeter, and Quirrell. All right, so the second cosplay that I know for sure that we're doing is from Fallout. This was another project that I completed last year for myself. I made a Vault Dweller suit for myself, as well as a Pip-Boy and a Vault backpack. I think it came out really well. There are maybe a few tweaks here and there that I need to make for this year, but generally that one is complete for me. The Pip-Boy isn't functional, but it does light up in a cool way, so I'm generally happy with that. So we'll be bringing back those looks, but in addition to that, I will be making Josh a Vault Dweller suit, so I need to make sure and get that sewed for him. He'll probably also want a Pip-Boy, so I'll be making another one of those, that kind of a thing. The third cosplay that we're doing that's completely new and kind of a start from scratch project that's a little daunting is that we've kind of talked ourselves into being the Cantina band from Star Wars. So my mom has volunteered to make the black suits that we'll all wear, so I don't need to worry about, the actual clothing wise, but I have been tasked with making all the heads for us so that they are a little bit more uniform. So I need to make 4 Biff heads, and then I do need to make the instruments for myself and for Josh. The heads already seem like the most complicated part to me, getting the proportions right, how are we going to get them there, how are we going to see out of them, logistics like that. But I couldn't just leave it at that for the complicated part of this costume. I also want our instruments to be playable. We want to be able to play the Cantina band music while we're in costume, just to kind of complete the situation. So, music wise, I'm not worried. We're all kind of musicians, so I think that will be the easy part. I think the hard part that I'm trying to wrap my head around is how we're going to be able to play those instruments with the Biff head mask on. So, for example, my mom will be playing the violin. So, when I make her mask, I need to take into consideration, kind of the shoulder, neck area. I need to talk to her more about what that looks like. My mom's friend will be playing just a standard recorder. So, I'm not sure if she's going to be able to have kind of the full mask, kind of Biff mouth situation, or if that will kind of need to be open for her. So, I need to figure out what that looks like. And then for Josh, what I think I'm going to have him kind of set up to be is getting a melodica for him. So that's kind of a little keyboard that is powered through blowing through a tube. So I think I can make it so the tube part can insert into the head mask. And then I can go ahead and make a little kind of tray type thing that the melodica sits on. So it kind of looks like, the percussive instrument that we see in like the Biff band, the Cantina band kind of get up. For myself, I have been falling down the rabbit hole of PVC membrane wind instruments. So that does seem a little bit daunting, but also a little exciting. I think I can really make that instrument look super alien, and I can make the mouthpiece long enough and small enough so that I would be able to fit it inside the mask so I can have that kind of stereotypical Biff mouth situation. But this project is really hurting my head, kind of thinking about, okay, where do I need to drill the holes at what intervals so that I'd be able to tune it so that it can be, a standardized instrument that I'd be able to, memorize music off of and fit in with the quartet. Because if you're actually playing the instruments together, you do all need to be tuned to the same, tuning essentially. So that is complicated. So if anyone has any experience with that or any tips, I'm all ears. Please go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'd be super interested to hear what you have to say. Beyond those three projects, other looks that are in consideration are Amazing Race contestants. I'm a huge Amazing Race fan, and I think that would be just a super comfortable costume to be able to put on, after a day of being the Cantina band. I think that would be a really, kind of nice reprieve, and it's going to be hot. I think that would work well. Another one is Severance characters. I think this would also be really easy, comfortable. The only real thing I would have to make for this would be the key cards. Another one is the Emperor's New Groove, specifically Kronk and Yzma's lab outfits. Josh and I already have these costumes set because we wore this for Halloween a few years ago. I think they turned out, pretty fun. The thing I would need to remake is the headpieces. So I would need to kind of think about how I'm going to make those more sturdy so that they travel, that kind of thing. Another idea is Rick and Morty characters, kind of similar to The Amazing Race. This would just be super easy, super comfortable, something we could just throw on and still feel like we're in cosplay, but be, in layman clothes. And then finally is Tangled. So we also did this for Halloween one year. I've already made Josh a vest for Flynn Rider, although it is made out of wool, so that might be a little warm. But it is an option. For myself, I would want to remake a Rapunzel dress, which has been on my list for a while, so I'm not opposed to that. I also think that some of Dragon Con's, evening events, at least from what I've been seeing on past catalogs that I've looked at, seem to be ball type events. So I would be more than happy to make myself a dress that's, Rapunzel themed. I'd be able to go ahead and wear that to one of the balls at night. So planning wise, I think I'm going to go ahead and print off some calendars or maybe just make some calendars on some spare pieces of paper. Just start plotting off general goals for the months leading through June. This really worked well for me last year when I was preparing kind of in the same manner, just with a few less projects. So I think being able to visualize it is going to be really helpful. Okay, I've gone ahead and printed out some calendars, and they have a little to-do list section on the side. I'm very much a list person, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and try to mark out what I want to accomplish each month. Go ahead and make that to-do list here. I'm really trying to be realistic, so I'm not trying to rush things. I want to take my time. I have things that I do, after work and on the weekends, so I don't have, all day, every day to work on these projects. Okay, just to give a quick rundown of kind of what I'm envisioning right now. January, my goal is to complete the Fallout mock-up. So that's the mock-up of the blue suit and then all the yellow bits that go on the blue suit. I want to finish that in January, as well as finish or get started on the Rita Skeeter pen and notepad. In February, we're going to continue with that notepad situation and then cut all the fabric out for the full fallout suit for Josh, and then get all that sewing done. Since I already will have been done all the mock-ups, I'll be really familiar with the process, so that should go pretty quickly. And then I want to figure out the Rita Skeeter harness situation, as well as start those Rita Skeeter alterations on the feathers and the skirt. I'm assuming those feathers and skirt might fall over into March, but we'll have to see. In March, I need to look into the Pip-Boy situation, so I need to ask our friend to 3D print that for us, and I need to start the Cantina band heads. I think I can put it off any longer. I need to go ahead and start those. So hopefully in March, I will get the 3D print for the Pip-Boy so I can sand and start the painting process on that, as well as figure out how I'm going to be making that Cantina band head and order the Cantina musical instrument parts, whether that's pipes or the melodica, things like that. In April is Cantina band month, so I need to make 3 more heads because I'm making 4 heads total. So after that first one and I figure out what I'm doing, I need to go ahead and replicate that. And I need to go ahead and get the instruments in order. So make those holders for the melodica, get the pipe drilled, make sure that it's working, that kind of stuff. In May, that's when I can kind of switch over to that Gilderly Lockhart costume. So I need to go ahead and do a mock-up probably of some of those pieces, find fabric, get all of that sewed. I'm hoping that will just be the month of May. In addition to that, I'm going to probably circle back to our fallout suits and weather them to make them look more worn. And I do have order ribbons on my to-do list for that. I love ribbon culture at conventions, so I'm very excited to go to Dragon Con with some. And then come June, we're kind of in the final kind of tidy up areas. So I need to make sure that the instruments are completely complete, decorated, things like that. I need to be doing a lot of thrifting for our Amazing Race costumes. I might have some Cricut projects for the Amazing Race. We might do Severance, so I might have some Cricut Severance projects. And then if, depending on what the costume situation looks like here, if I have time, that's when I would probably go ahead and do the Tangled dress or the Emperor's New Groove headpieces. So that's kind of June is my gotta make a decision on the final few costumes that we're doing. And that's about it for this planning kind of session ramble here about Dragon Con. If you have any tips or tricks for Dragon Con, if you've been in the past or if you're a fellow newbie, please let me know. I'm excited to kind of join that community. And if any of these projects sound interesting, I'm going to be trying to document the process as I go along here. So I hope that you guys stick around. See you later.